Missing him, even though he hurt you, doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Nobody warns you that one of the hardest parts of leaving an abusive relationship is the fact that you are going to miss your abusive partner. In fact, that's what keeps a lot of women stuck, is that trauma bond that you have with your partner. You may still be in love with him, be very, very attached to him, and that is really, really difficult to leave someone, even when they're hurting you, when you feel deeply, deeply attached to them. But it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. A lot of times, family and friends, when they know or figure out, or you tell them what's happening to you, they can have some very strong opinions about, well, you need to leave. You need to call the police. You need to get out of there. Um, he sucks. He's the devil. We need to, you know, string him up and bury him somewhere. Um, and you probably are going to feel very, very conflicted. And this is not even to mention if y'all have children together. That's a whole other thing. But you're going to feel that push pull and that ambivalence, and it's going to consume a lot of your mental energy. Your nervous system is kind of pulled in two different directions. There's a part of you that's being hurt and feels and perceives him as a threat. There's the other part of you that remembers every time he was kind and loving and all the good times and all the promises, and you're still hoping for that. One of the things that is most powerful as far as getting us to get stuck in a pattern of behavior, and this is just from a conditioning and behavioral standpoint. So it's not the be all end all explanation, but this is just one point of view. It's kind of like the reasons why slot machines are so effective in getting people to sit there for hours and hours and hours. And well, it used to be there was an arm you pull down. Now it's just a button you push, I think. I don't know. I'm not a gambler. Anyway, but it's the intermittent reinforcement that is the most powerful as far as shaping behavior. So when I am not exactly sure when I'm going to get the reward or the positive reinforcer, I'm going to keep pushing the button. If I were able to predict that every third time I pushed it or every 20th time I pushed it, that I was going to get the reward, then that would not form as strong of an attachment to that behavior or reinforcing that behavior to get that reward. But when you don't know when it's coming, it keeps you engaged. It keeps you going and going and going. So from a behavioral standpoint, that can be part of how these trauma bonds are so reinforcing, is that you have learned, your nervous system has learned that eventually he's going to be kind and loving again. So we just need to get back to that. I just need to keep pushing the button enough times to get back to that. And then we'll get back there. And you hope that that's where you'll stay. Another part of this very, very powerful attachment is, you know, as far as why you're grieving so much when you do leave, you're not just grieving losing him or your partner, whoever. You're grieving the dream, the hope, the idea of what this relationship was going to be, what you hoped it would be, what maybe he promised it would be. And that is very, very painful to let go of that. I mean, you know, especially if you were married or living together or had kids together, you know, you don't take that lightly. Most people don't enter into big commitments like that lightly. You think and hope it's forever. And so to come to terms with the fact that it's ending and that it's a cycle you're in, and to get back to the reward, you're going to have to keep enduring that cycle of pain and pain and pain. And it could get to a point where it destroys your mental health, destroys your nervous system. And by the way, physical abusers, they were verbal and emotional abusers before they got physical. So I do have lots of examples and have heard lots of stories of um, women whose partners were emotionally abusive or verbally abusive for a long, long time, years even. And then one day it escalated to physical. And once it escalates to physical, it doesn't usually go back again. Um, so this can lead to threats to your physical safety. From a nervous system standpoint, trauma is trauma is trauma. Threats are threats. And your nervous system reacts the same way to an emotional or psychological threat as it does a physical threat. So that's a very, very important thing to know about emotional abuse, that it's just as bad. I would argue in many ways it can be worse than physical abuse, not from a actual literal physical safety standpoint, but just from it's so hard to recognize and see that it's abuse when somebody's not physically hurting me. And so the psychological damage that that does, the confusion, the cognitive dissonance, that state of I can't reconcile Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. How can he be both people? Which one is the real one? Um, how can he be both? And that's very, very confusing and draining to exist in that state of mind all the time, trying to figure out who he is and what do I need to do to just get him back to Dr. Jekyll. Um, Sorry, I'm old. I don't know if everybody's going to get that reference, but most people do, I think. Anyway, um, I've been doing this for 25 years, and the longer I do this, the more I believe that emotional abuse is something that is happening to so many women everywhere all the time. And it's not obvious, and we aren't talking about it, and we need to be talking about it, and we need to be able to identify it. So you can still love him and decide that this relationship cannot be anymore. I can't do it anymore. Um, you may not be able to turn off your feelings. Uh, you're going to grieve, and that is normal and that is okay. You need support. You need people around you who are going to understand that and not push you to get over it or not have feelings for him or attachment to him anymore just because he was awful to you. If he were awful from the beginning all the time, well, you wouldn't have been with him. But they don't usually lead with that. Usually abusers are very, very charming. They may love bomb you in the beginning. So it's going to take time, and you need time and patience and compassion for yourself to work through all of this. This is what I do. I help women at various stages, all stages of this, whether you don't know if it's abuse, maybe you're not sure, maybe it's just conflict and you're trying to sort through that and how you feel about it and what's going on, all the way to the other end of the spectrum where you know this is abusive and something's got to change, you need help. Um, I'm there for you at any point on that spectrum. I'm licensed in Louisiana, Florida, and Virginia. I see people in person in Baton Rouge, and then virtually across Louisiana, Florida, and Virginia. So even if you're not ready to reach out to someone for therapy, I want you to know that it is normal to still be in love with and be grieving and feel attached to your abuser, and there's nothing wrong with you if you are experiencing that. Um, I'll be posting more about this stuff, so if you like this content, please hit the little heart button or follow or save this video. Anyway, I'm here for you.